Hello and welcome to 4am Art. In this video I'm going to show you how to draw a pug, and I will be just using a regular sketchbook as well as two pencils. They happen to be Tombow Mono pencils, one in HB softness and one 6B. You can use whatever you want, of course, any pencil will do, but it's definitely helpful to get a softer pencil because then you can get darker tones. So first thing we're going to do is we'll try to get our basic shapes in first and try to get our proportions right. So I'll just go ahead and mark like a center line and then a line that connects the eyes. Now always take a look at your reference picture and start comparing sizes of different features of the dog. So I've got this line for the eyes, and I'll just go ahead and draw one eye here and approximately 3 to 4 eyeballs in between. I'll go ahead and draw the other eye. What I mean by that is if I draw more circles in between, you'll have about 3 or 4. 1, 2, 3. So then what we'll do is look at the snout of the dog, and you have this kind of like a mountain shape, and then it's going to go down, and he's got pretty floppy cheeks. So I'm just roughing that in. The top of the nose is about even with the center of the eye, so like right about here. And this is basically just a big oval, and we'll add the nostrils. We've got that line that goes right underneath the nose that goes to the mouth, and we've got that other cheek kind of flopping over this way. So then of course underneath here will be the chin. Let's go back to the top. I think I may have made the top a little bit too high, so I'll just go ahead and erase that and maybe make it a little bit lower, like let's say right there. Looking at how much distance is there from the outside of the eye to the side of the head. So it's right about here. So I'll go ahead and mark that. And same on this side. It looks like it might be just a little bit farther, so I'll go ahead and mark that and finish off the top of the head. Now the ears on a pug tend to be kind of floppy and triangular shape. So let's go ahead and do that. This is just the fold, and this part right here is the shadow, and you'll see how I shade that here in a second. So what I mean by a triangle is that you have this basic triangular shape here. So let's go to the other side. And even as I drew this middle line here, as if it'll be perfectly symmetric side to side, it's really not, unless you have a perfectly symmetrical dog and you're looking at the dog exactly right in the middle. Anyway, here's our triangle again, and we've got a fold. And let's go ahead and finish off the side of the head going down. And same here. So it's just going down, and this pug of course will have a lot of wrinkles. I'm gonna go ahead and make this eye just a little smaller actually. And then now we can start kind of marking some of the folds that are around the head, around the face. And he's got a lot of folds that kind of go right here in the middle, hit by the brow. And right now I'm just using simple lines to kind of indicate where the folds are, where the wrinkles are. But once we start shading, it's going to look a lot better. And you're going to get a definite feel for the surface undulations, the contours of the face. So as I always say, try to draw as accurately as you can as far as your reference picture, but don't go overboard and try to make it exact. All the dog has to do is turn one way or the other by just a little bit, and it immediately doesn't look like what you're drawing. So don't worry about it making it perfect. Alright, so I'm just putting in some of the wrinkles right now, and the wrinkles of course continue into the neck, and the body. But I'm not going to put too much focus on the body, so I'll stop right there. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and start shading. And I'm just going to mark again the outline here first. There are darker areas of the pug and lighter areas. So the shading will not only show the shape, the shadows, the overall volume of the face and the parts of the head, such as the ear, but it also shows that this part, say the ear, is darker than other parts of the head. And I'll go ahead and use my darker pencil here, my softer pencil, to go ahead and put the really dark shadows here underneath the eye, underneath the ear, I should say. Okay, notice that I'm trying to kind of indicate the side of the head here is not a straight line, but you can see some separation between the hairs. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and start working on the eye, just because that's, to me, is always the most important. Remember, you can get really dark tones with any pencil simply by putting more pressure onto the pencil, onto the paper. But it definitely helps to get dark tones using, of course, a softer leaded pencil, such as what I'm doing right here. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I'm kind of deviating away from the way I did it here. I went with some lighter tones and the mid-tones, and then went with the dark. Here, I think what I'm going to switch over to is just putting in the really darkest tones first, and then go up on the value scale. So these are the darkest shadows amongst the wrinkles. And we can do the gradients. I'll do the gradients here in a little bit. So we've got the top of the snout here. And you have to try to make your wrinkles believable. So the dark lines will kind of vary depending on what's going on with the wrinkles. So like darker, a little bit wider here, and then thinning out that way. And as far as these wrinkles, it's not going to be even and symmetric from side to side necessarily. And I'm trying to indicate that a little bit. Let's go ahead and try to work on the eyeball a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and really darken the pupil here, and maybe add some shadow, some of the reflections, I should say. I'll go ahead and add the mid-tone for the eye, and I will leave this white section here as the reflection. And I'll do the same thing on this side. Because the eyes are generally looking at the same spot, looking in the same direction, the reflection and how you draw the eye should roughly be about the same, but it could also vary somewhat too. Again, remembering that nothing is necessarily symmetric unless you're looking at a solid object. As far as in nature, symmetry isn't necessarily common, and there'll be more variation. Right, so again, I'm putting some really dark tones here where I see really dark tones in my reference picture. I try not to put the reference picture in my videos just because I just never know if that particular image is copyrighted. And of course, I'm sure somebody took that picture and is trying to make a living out of it. I just don't want to get into any trouble with that. So it doesn't matter anyway necessarily. If you want to use a reference, check out the finished drawing that I usually put at the upper left of the video, and or look at the big finished drawing that I put in the very beginning of the video. Alright, so I'm getting to the cheeks here, and we've got more wrinkles, and this will be somewhat stylized as far as where the whiskers come out of the cheek. Usually they kind of look like dots, but here I'm just kind of making it like these lines. Sharpen your pencil as needed if you want some of the finer details to pop through. And remember that as you draw, you'll naturally start to form a sharp edge on your pencil tip if you haven't been rotating your pencil. And so at that point you can rotate your pencil to that sharp section and you can get a sharp line. Like right here, I just rotated the pencil a little bit and I can get some of the sharper lines back. And I'll just keep working here. Alright, so now as I get to the bottom here, bottom of the face, I'm going to get into some darker shadows, and this will help to pop this part of the face forward and recede everything under the chin backward. Okay, so this is where I'm going to just make this whole bottom part dark. And it doesn't really matter necessarily what direction your pencil strokes are. So I'm just going to keep going over to the right side. And again, I've got this really dark shadow that's under the ear, between the ear and the face, the head. And I'm using really short lines here, just like over there, to kind of show that the hair, the outline here, is not a straight line, but kind of sort of indicating separate hair that delineate the edge of the head. Alright, I'm going to stop it right here. So again, this part right here is part of the ear. It comes out and then it folds forward. I'm getting closer to finishing here, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my HB lead pencil and start adding some darker tones. So around the eye, and here I'm just going to go with, I think what I'll go ahead and do is just go with straight up and down strokes. And like right here, I'm going to, these folds, I'm trying to add a little bit of gradient from the darkest tones and make it a little bit lighter on its edges, and then get really light on the pressure so that we finish with this paper as the highlight. Okay, so like right here, here's the darkest tone, and then I'm starting to add a little bit of mid-tones and then stopping. And I'll just kind of do that for some of these other folds just to give it more of a three-dimensional feel. And the area around the eye is a darker color, which is why I'm adding some shading right there. Now the snout tends to also be dark on a pug, so I'm gonna go ahead and darken that. Notice I'm darkening the whole thing, including what would be considered the highlights or the lighter parts. And I'll just go all the way across. But now that I've done that, I'm gonna go ahead and add some darker midtones here, just so this whole thing doesn't look so flat. If you look right now, the value across the whole snout is just even. Well, we don't want that. So this side of the cheek will be a little bit darker. And again, we're going to try to add some dimensionality to these wrinkles. And this side of the snout should be a little bit darker. And then this edge right here should be a little bit darker. So I'm just adding some more value, some more pencil strokes. And I think what I'll do is I'll just leave the left side pretty much as it is. Give it a little bit of a sketchy feel. And then now add some lighter tones down here. But again, I'm going to try to make it so that there's a gradient from dark right here to mid and then lightest tones right there. You don't want necessarily dark, very sharp edges here. And I'll go ahead and kind of use more scribbly lines, make it a little bit more sketchy. And then this part again will be away from the light, so I'll just go ahead and make this part dark. But I'm still adding some gradients here, remember. So dark here and then lighter as we go there, and that makes it more rounded. And as I go farther, I'm going to just leave these kind of sketchy looking. And now back here, I'll just add a little bit more tone. This is again away from the light, so I would just want this to be a little bit darker. And of course, this part of the ear will be away from the light. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make this whole side of the ear just a little bit darker as well. So this drawing isn't really so detailed that, and I didn't spend a lot of time. This is, to me, is kind of like a sketch, almost kind of like a sketch. Although I guess it does look like I did enough shading and detail to make it sort of realistic. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, this is the pug. I hope you were able to get something out of this video, and are willing to give it a shot. Keep practicing, and I will see you next time. I will go ahead and add just a couple whiskers, by the way. So please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.